Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 169 of Lonely Gods. I'm your host, David, and I'm joined here, as always, by Kate.
Oh, hi, Dave.
Oh, hi, Kate.
You know, I hate it when we talk before the show because then we're mad at each other before we even hit record.
We're not even mad at each other.
Is joke.
Yeah, I know it's a joke.
Is joke for funny, haha, for the one person who watches this.
So we starting out this week. Do we have any Doctor Who news, Kate?
Kind of, sorta. So there was a news piece on BigFinish.com about the fucking April monthly release, and it's a Fifth Doctor release with 5 solo, and it's introducing a new 80s era unit team, which I thought was a neat idea. And I guess the main supporting character is going to be like a unit medic. And it was interesting just because like they never did a unit story during the 80s. So we have the classic, 70s Brigadier era team. We have the new series team, and I guess late 80s with Sylvester McCoy, there was a bit of a unit one as well. But Davison never got one. So having sort of a early to mid 80s era team that's unique to that time period is kind of an interesting idea, I thought. And
but doesn't this go into the whole thing is why would you listen to an audio that doesn't have an original Doctor? Like, what's the point if it's not the people we know, if it's something new and different?
Well, no, because it's a Peter Davison audio, which I said already.
But, like, I don't know. I'm interested.
I mean, it's fine by me. It's like Peter Davison is playing the Fifth Doctor. We've had Fifth Doctor solo stories before that were perfectly fine.
Isn't this almost like introducing a new companion for an old Doctor, though?
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Have they done that outside of the Eighth Doctor, really?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we're gonna get into some stuff.
Yeah, I mean we've already heard Oliver Harper in the First Doctor Companion Chronicles.
Okay, I feel like you need more than one arc.
More than a trilogy.
More than an arc.
Okay.
A trilogy is an arc. Like.
Have we done more?
I mean, I'm not gonna call like you need like a fucking Richter syndrome arc because this arc has been stupid, but.
Yeah, we haven't done too many other new companions. Apparently, they're introducing a new Tom Baker companion in I think next year's season of Fourth Doctor Adventures.
Now?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, now.
It's not a terrible idea, but really, like, isn't this like one of the last seasons? Like, you're gonna do it now?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, they're probably going to keep going until Tom Baker keels over, and they've recorded so far in advance. They're probably going to keep going years after he's keeled over. I mean, there was also Hannah in the awful Moonflash Tomb Ship.
Oh, that's one arc.
Yeah, I know it's one arc, but my God, does it suck? I had to bring it up. It's so bad. So no, we haven't gotten to too many unique companions yet. I guess. I feel like
calling Hannah or calling Oliver a full-on companion is like calling Mickey a companion. It's like, yeah, I guess. But
I would call Mickey a companion though.
But he doesn't. He barely travels with the like. I feel.
Would you consider Captain Jack a companion? Because Mickey sticks around like probably for more episodes total than Jack did.
I don't know. The only reason I don't know if I'd agree with your assertion there is because half of Mickey's arc is alternate universe Mickey, who's way more interesting. Like, I feel like those are two different. I mean,
he also turned into a plastic guy who ate pizza. So
that wasn't him. That was an automaton pretending to be him.
I fucking hate that episode. I know it's the first episode of the new series, but like, it's so stupid.
I think it's goofy and fun, but it is really stupid, but I enjoy it.
I don't know. I'd say Oliver counts as a companion. Hannah doesn't. Because I like Oliver and Hannah sucks.
Oliver was the main point of all of like a huge part of all of those stories. Hannah's just there.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like Oliver, at least, like, he only had a trilogy, but he was, like, you know, a significant factor in all three of those stories, where Hannah, you know, kind of, like, stowed away and turned up at the end and then got turned into a robot or whatever. Like, it was like, she wasn't even in most of the episodes, and the one where she was in the most was her introduction one, where she wasn't a companion yet. So it's dumb.
Yeah, it is dumb.
I'll count Oliver, but anyway, no. Introducing this unit medic guy seems pretty all right to me.
I hope it's interesting.
I hope it's interesting too. I hope that the new Tom Baker companion is interesting. I think she's a cop.
I mean, to be fair, we're 2 episodes into the new season of Fourth Doctor Adventures, and I've liked both of them. Which
look at you with your segue.
I know we're not segueing yet. Well, I guess you haven't watched the new Doctor Who, right?
No, still waiting. Next Tuesday is
I
when
guess
the complete Capaldi drops, and yeah.
Should we mention the news that new Lady Doctor had to fight to get paid the same as normal man doctors, because that was the only real Doctor Who news.
I have a hard time believing that.
You know what, I kind of do as well, but I don't feel like we should talk about it. Like, just
I don't know. I don't want to get into politics on the show, but I have a hard time believing that, and I like. I just think that, like,
if that's the case, that's terrible. If not,
whenever something like that comes up, I always wonder. It's like, why aren't these businesses hiring only women, and they could save like 75% on their payroll?
Well, we don't need to talk about it, and it doesn't matter.
You know,
but
it's
either
silly.
way. You know what? I've been watching the new season of Broadchurch a little bit, and that show's really fucking good. So I have high hopes for the new season of Doctor Who, starring one of the stars of Broadchurch and being run by that showrunner. But we'll see. Like every new season with a showrunner, we'll fucking see.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, like I said, I haven't been terribly impressed with Chibnall's Torchwood or Doctor Who episodes, but that's not necessarily an indication of how it'll go as a showrunner. I mean, you know, during Russell T Davies' tenure, Stephen Moffat wrote fantastic episodes. Everyone he wrote was great, and then he became in charge, and it was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, hey! Don't say that, because you don't like Love and Monsters. I'm like the only person in the universe that likes that episode.
I think Love and Monsters is kind of funny.
Okay, good. I like that.
I don't think it's necessarily a good episode. It's funny in like a what on earth is going on kind of way.
Yeah. It's really charming and entertaining, but it ends and you're like, what the fuck did I just watch?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't find it excruciating the way I do like Fear Her or Space Pirates or something.
It's got some really good ideas and some really good moments, and then the other half is you're just like, what? What?
Paving slab blowjobs.
someone becomes just a living tile. Cool. What a weird story.
Yep.
But yeah, anyway. So we have 4 audios to talk about this week. We have a 4th Doctor adventure, and then the conclusion to our 5th Doctor, Nyssa, Tegan, Turlough, Richter's syndrome arc. Fucking finally, god damn it, Kate, 5 weeks. It was like 2 weeks longer than it should have been. But let's start with our 4th Doctor adventure from the latest 4th Doctor, since the series has now gone from monthly releases to a box set format. Let's talk about the second story in our box set, the Crowmarsh Experiment, where this story opens with the Doctor and Leela landing on it is just a planet. Yeah, it is a planet.
It's like this jungle planet. It's got a pyramid on it. There's a distress signal.
Yes, and they find a scientist lady who's like...
Well, it's a space pilot lady. Her name is Jennifer. She's like rotten, and then there's like these evil machines. And then, I was going to say Nyssa. Fucking Leela passes the fuck out.
And wakes up at a fancy-pantsy institute in London.
Yeah. Some sort of weird 70s research facility called the Crowmarsh facility, I guess.
Yes.
Crowmarsh Institute, whatever.
Yes.
And they're like, "Oh, Leela, you've finally woken up, Doctor. You've been asleep in our dream machine that we're developing for the military, and you're not actually a savage. You're a fucking scientist. And everyone you know is someone that's here."
We get a nice Shutter Island episode. And so yeah, this episode's all about, I mean, it's like all of the Fourth Doctor adventures, it's a single hour story, so it is, the length of a little longer. But basically it's a New Who-esque episode length. We get one plot line for an hour. And I enjoyed the story quite a bit. I mean, it wasn't necessarily incredibly surprising. Like, we knew going in, they're
Obviously
not going to fucking rewrite reality or anything. We know that Leela's being held by something, and the what's it ends out being interesting enough. It's basically like this alien entity that
it's a machine that
living.
Basically, it lives on absorbing brains, and to do that, it has to erase your personality. So it basically puts people into this simulation where it basically it breaks you down and gets you to admit that your life wasn't real, and then it can kind of extract your delicious juices, whatever. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's a foregone conclusion, but I enjoyed this one because I thought it the character work with Leela was really well done. Louise Jameson has a good performance, and just putting Leela into a situation like this is interesting because, unlike other companions, if you did this to Sarah Jane, for example, Leela is so far from contemporary late 70s Earth life that telling her that her life was wrong and that's actually her place is way more disorienting than it would be for an Earthbound companion.
But she's so out of her element.
That's what I'm saying.
And so divorced from reality that when you give her things like bringing, is it Connor was his name, right?
Colin Marshall. It's the figment of, if you remember way back when in Requiem for the Rocketman and Deathmatch, she fell for that Rocketman Marshall.
Yes.
And so the machine has trotted out that image and has been oh, this is your husband and you have children and and they want you to get better. You have to admit you're not a savage.
Idealized life back. It's such a good. It works so much better than any other character to tempt her like that as well. Mm-hmm. It works. It works really well. And even though it's a foregone conclusion, how it's eventually going to resolve. It's a fun and entertaining ride. And
it really it's very strong character work and well written, and sometimes that's enough. It doesn't have to be surprising; just has to be well done.
And it's really awesome to see the Doctor playing out of character, because
yes, he's the other researcher there, Dr. Stewart.
Yes, we get to see Tom Baker doing a different characterization. I mean, I know we can literally see him in other things because it's not like he was an actor who was only in Doctor Who,
right?
But it's fun to see him in this universe playing a different character. We didn't really get, especially with Tom Baker, we don't really get that a lot.
No, we don't. I mean, other Doctors did something so with Enemy of the World with Salamander or whatever, but it's interesting to see Tom sort of play another character within the Doctor Who context.
Yeah. And he's still a great actor. He
is absolutely.
He feels like not necessarily sympathetic, but I mean, there's of course a reveal that this is all construction to just warp her mind. But the character itself before that feels, what's the word I'm working for? It's not relatable, but you understand where he's coming from, and he doesn't seem cold or evil or anything.
No, he doesn't. He seems like a normal person who is genuinely upset that his colleague is insane. Basically,
there's this slight hint of malice behind it because we find out that in this false reality, they perform this experiment on people, and the people that can't find their way back to their actual quote unquote reality lose their mind and have to be lobotomized and kept in the basement.
Yeah, they're working for the government, and their contact is Strang, who you might remember is the like 8-foot Sontaran from the King of Sontar. Um, so I mean, I do like that they're kind of populating this dreamscape with genuine figments from Leela's imagination.
Me too.
Strang less so, but Marshall was used really well, and I
Yeah,
liked
no,
their chemistry in that Rocketman episode. So bringing him back was a nice idea. And they do play off each other well, especially at the end when Leela's gonna like blow up the institute, and he's like, "Can you not explode and come home to our children? Like, don't do this."
but there's and it's a great scene, but there's also this part of reality, like you can feel the reality breaking down in that scene where Leela knows this is all fake,
Yeah,
and like, but it's still that just that desire for that like semblance of normality and stuff.
yeah, that's what she says to the because the doctor's actual voice, like he's managing to break in, like transmit into the simulation,
yeah, just
through Leela's radio. And actually, one nice thing is like when you hear the doctor speaking through the radio versus the Dr. Stewart, like there's definitely a distinct performance there between the two.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah, like I think she admits to him that like, yeah, I know this isn't real, but maybe I want this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the greatest story ever, but it's really fun. Like, I still think I probably like the first episode of the season a little more because it does a little bit more. But this episode,
maybe
thoroughly entertaining. Like, I had a
yeah, and I mean it is like it's buttering me up the right way because I like Leela and I like weird mindscapes.
yes,
and that kind of stuff. And for the Fourth Doctor adventures, this is a very different kind of episode.
For all of our fucking complaints, that if you've been following along, at least listening to every episode of this show, you know how much we've kind of just shit all over the Fourth Doctor adventures for being mediocre. Like it's been such a strong foot forward this season.
Absolutely, this is. I mean, based on these two, this is the best in recent memory. I mean, there have been other highlights for sure in the range before this, but like. My God, like it's so focused on nostalgia and it's so safe that it really kind of just plods along and not bad, but an average quality, and it's kind of bland. This is a real kick up the ass.
I mean, we may have had one of these seasons with 2 episodes this strong in it, but I don't know if we have. Like, having not looking at like the actual episode list, I don't know if we've had just one season this strong. I mean, we have a 2-part finale now that we'll cover next week.
Well, I mean, it's only the mid-season finale. There's more coming in. I guess May is when part 2 comes out.
So it's a 2-part box set.
Yeah, it's an 8-episode season. They're releasing it in 4 and 4. So
okay, well. We'll see. So we got a 2-part story. So I mean, if it continues being good, this is on track to be the best season of the.
Definitely the most consistent. I mean,
yeah,
I enjoyed like the 2-parters, like with the Cuthbert stuff. Trouble with Drax is great.
Yeah.
King of Sontar, just lots of stuff. But I feel like it's very inconsistent. Usually, there's only kind of 1 or 2 highlights per season, and the rest is pretty mediocre. So we'll see if they can keep this up.
And these are 2 very different stories that the only really, besides, there being Fourth Doctor adventures, the only like linking factors are both Leela's stories, but they're both really good.
Yeah. So we'll see if it keeps it up or if we're being really premature based on 2 episodes, but
yeah, hopefully. Well, I didn't know it was 8, so that changes my statement just slightly.
Hey, look, they're that's 25% good instead of 50% good. They've got 4 more opportunities to fuck up.
25% good is still not a bad record for these seasons. Like,
that is very true. I think we've said this before, but like for me, I found that like a lot of the time, Tom's episodes were more consistent when they were longer stories, like the Lost stories or the Philip Hinchcliffe Presents.
Yeah.
I felt like they never really got a handle on doing anything with the 1-hour format other than, nostalgia trips. But they really seem to be trying this time.
Wasn't that one with like the living armor sword things that I can't remember the name of? That was a Tom Baker story, right?
The living armor sword things.
It was like there was an evil villainess lady. I can't remember what it was called.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think it was a Sarah Jane audio.
We didn't do Sarah Jane audios.
No, like a fourth Doctor with her before.
But she was dead.
Oh,
We never did audios with the Doctor before.
yeah.
Are you thinking of like the Stockbridge episode with?
No, it wasn't Stockbridge. It was like future, but in like castles.
The future, but castles.
There were like living weapons. What are some of like the? I can't remember what it was called. It doesn't matter.
No, not really.
No, it doesn't. Let's just not talk about this anymore.
Living weapons. I'm scrolling through the Fourth Doctor page. I'm finished right now trying to figure this out.
It wasn't a fourth Doctor, but the big bad was a woman, and she was like, it was all about weapons.
I don't know. I'm sorry. Anyway, moving on.
So let's finish. Let's finally get out of this fucking audio series so we can go. Like, I don't mind being in audio. I know I complain a lot, but like when we hit a long stretch of audios, I feel like both of our complaints always reach this point where it's like, come the fuck on.
Well, stop. I mean, sometimes yes, and sometimes for me, I don't mind when like the long run we had of like solo Nyssa stuff. I was mostly fine with that. I mean, the quality was sometimes variable, but I didn't mind that there was lots of those audios. The issue for me,
this is a story arc.
This is a story arc, so pacing actually matters instead because it's not just a series of one-offs. This is an ongoing plot line, and my lord, did they spin their wheels.
Okay, Kate. Riddle me this, because I was really seriously thinking about this. And
okay, Batman. What?
I'm too lazy to go back and look.
Okay,
but was there not? I mean, I very maybe may have made this up, but I feel like we started the Nyssa stuff with a companion chronicle that had to do with her getting out of E-space.
No.
No?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, then I don't remember what I was thinking of.
There was, I think some of the Romana ones were about
her
leaving E-space.
That's what it was. It was Romana. It wasn't Nyssa. Because we left Romana in E-space, and she obviously comes out.
Yeah, we did do a Nyssa companion chronicle where she was older, working on Terminus and telling the story, but
okay. That's what I get confused of. Anyway, so yeah. Let's finish. We are at the end of the Richter syndrome arc, even though that actual story ended in our last trilogy with an actual good ending, except for the literal ending where Nyssa does not go and be with her family and decides to fuck off for reasons unknown to anyone besides the writers who are like, we're going to make another trilogy. Like, it really felt like we're going to make one more trilogy so she can't go be with her family. And we're going to make Nyssa's story really depressing for no reason, because it's not like she's a character that really deserves all of this bad shit to happen to her.
Well, I mean, from the minute the Master ate her father, like,
it was already
after the other.
Like, come on, can't
I know, it's like Nyssa's been through enough, and Nick Briggs is like, hold my beer.
this story arc was just made me upset, because it's like, why do you hate Nyssa so much? Why can't you just let her, like, you wrote her, the show poorly wrote her out and left her on Terminus, and for reasons, and it's like, okay, and then we find out she had a family and all this stuff, and it's like, oh, she lived her life and was happy, and then you're fucking her over again. Why?
I feel like Prisoners of Fate was like, it was drama enough, and we talked about this last week, but like it was such a natural stopping place that doing this additional 3 episodes really wasn't needed. It's more just like, I would have been okay if it was just a little coda that, maybe the first 2 are standalone adventures, and in part 3, that's she arrives back with her kids, or I don't know, but like it just wasn't necessary.
So we're going to talk about, we have 3 stories here.
Yes,
2 of them are interesting premises that Equilibrium's handled okay. I have a lot of issues with Entropy Plague, but that mostly has to do with the overarching plot and not the actual plot of the story.
Right.
But, like, we'll talk about the individual stories, but this just last trilogy feels useless. And we start by going back into E-space, which I accidentally called N-space last week. I realized that listening to the story. I was like, oh, I forgot the term. I mixed up the terminology. N is normal space. E-space is where Adric came from. But we fucking go back to E-space for God knows why. Like, we had to end it there because, you know, Nyssa named her son Adric. We have to fucking go back to E-space.
I guess so. Well, I mean, yeah, I've never been terribly enamored with E-Space, and while I do enjoy State of Decay, the vampire story, I'm not a big fan of Warrior's Gate, and I'm not a big fan of what the fuck, Full Circle. Number one, because it saddled us with that shitbrick Adric, and number two, I just thought the stories were kind of ponderous and plotting, and I thought they were kind of trying to aim for like a harder sci-fi, but not actually making it interesting.
Full Circle is the one that Adric comes in, correct?
Correct, yes.
I enjoyed that story. I remember my thoughts on that story, and even though the fucking Swamp Men's costumes are kind of stupid, I liked them at the time.
Fucking Swamp Men.
God, fucking... wasn't the reveal of that story that they were all genetically related, and then we have to bring that up again in Mistfall?
Yes,
like,
yes.
But it feels like Mistfall is trying to, it like almost took pains to be like, no, the Swamp Men and the spiders are the same, but the people are slightly different enough.
I guess.
So, okay, so let's do our first story, which is Mistfall, which has returning, what is the planet's name? Do you remember?
Alzarius.
Alzarius in E-space.
Yes, it's Adric's home planet, his swampy shithole of a home planet.
And this is like 200 or 300 years later.
Yeah, the Starliner has settled on another world. It's left. It's founded New Alzarius, and but now they've come back for a scientific expedition.
So society has not evolved to the point where we still are being ruled by 3 deciders.
Mm-hmm. I gotta get this out of my system. This episode is fucking pointless. Who the fuck wanted a sequel to Full Circle? Who the fuck saw Adric and was like, you know what? I want to know more about where that kid came from. Nobody wanted this. I can't believe nobody wanted this.
Okay, I'm gonna defend Full Circle a little bit. It has its issues, but it's like
it's not awful, but my God,
it's a society that's been brought up this way. Fine, the Doctor meets them. They evolve. They we solve the problems. They leave the planet. Fucking, it's been 200 to 300 years later, and society hasn't changed in the slightest. Really?
Yeah, and you know what?
Except now we've subjugated a slightly lesser but still intelligent race.
Yeah, there was this tribal primitive species on the planet they settled called the Higgs bosons or whatever the fuck.
The Higgs boson. Yeah,
I don't remember what they're called, but anyway, basically they kind of they made friends with them, and then they kind of expanded and took over. And the Higgs bosons are upset because they're taking over their planet, and it's the whole balance of nature and technology and blah 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 blah.
This episode is literally a repeat of, I can't remember what the title of it was, but the Helheim episode where we find out that the crazy asshole guy is actually betraying everyone, and because subversion of society. Because of decisions. Yeah, it's literally the same plot, but stupider, Kate.
You know what else it's the same as, but stupider?
Full Circle.
Full Circle. You know who wrote Full Circle?
The same writer?
Yes! Yes, it did. It's not just plagiarism, it's self-plagiarism.
God damn it.
You want to know what that same writer also wrote?
What?
Sons of Keldor.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Holy shit. My God, it's kind of the same, that's better handled, but it's kind of the same plot.
There's a lot of the same plots from old Andrew Smith. He's done a fair bit of Big Finish now.
He loves subjugating a native population only to have it.
Does.
Yeah.
What else has he done? I'm curious as to what other audios he's written. I'll just keep going, and I'll come and interrupt you.
So we're back on Alzarius, and they're investigating it.
Yeah, they want to basically they're wanting to study the Marshmen because they can, because the Marshmen are highly adaptive. and they still share genetic similarities with the Elzarians. They want to study them and see like if they can get those sort of adaptive properties to work with Elzarians genetics.
But there's also this Marshman that they've experimented on and like made intelligent, and it can speak Elzarian.
Yes, they took the marsh lady away from the marsh on one of their previous trips and raised it like a feral baby, and its name is Femme, and it's a girl. I don't know, can you imagine that? And it's a
very weird plot line.
It's a very weird plot line, but anyway, but like the Femme she's learned to sort of navigate Elzarian society. She's learned to speak. And so she's there, and in the story, she kind of just acts as a bridge between the Elzarians and the Marshmen who are upset.
One of the plot lines in the story is about making peace between the Elzarians and the Marshmen and mutual understanding, which is, like, if that was the plot line, fine, it would have been an interesting story. But the fact that we have to go to this other plot where one of the deciders made a decision that sacrificed a bunch of the native people's lives to save
there was going to be
sacrificed like a couple thousand of native people's and Elzarians' lives to save like tens of thousands.
Yeah, there was like some sort of environmental disaster. A tidal wave was coming.
It was a flood.
So she decided to divert the flood into like the fucking Higgs boson reserve, and fled them, and they did try to warn them and everything, but it was too late, and because they don't use technology, it was very hard to put out like a mass broadcast that would reach them. But the numbers game it was saving tens of thousands versus sacrificing just a couple thousand.
But we also come to find out at the end of this story that they talked to the leaders of these native people, and they totally fucking agreed.
Yeah, they did, and but they agreed to keep it quiet because they didn't think some of their people would be upset, and then like the victims' families would be furious. And that's exactly what happened, because there's an environmentalist on the planet sabotaging the research group, and he's there with one of the Higgs bosons who kills him. Because he's actually working with the asshole security guard who, like Cobwebs, it does turn out is actually on the other side because his sister married a Higgs boson and
died in the flood.
So they're there to take vengeance on the Decider, who is also heading up the experiment. Because if there's one thing you want on a dangerous expedition to a hostile planet, it's putting one of your
three Deciders. I mean, like, there's not even a good terminology for the equivalent. Literally, by calling them deciders, it's like, well, like, if I call you a decider, you decide things. Like, there's really not much higher of a position that you can have than someone who decides things.
I guess there could be a vetoer, but or a what are you fucking doing? But yeah, it's so.
The story isn't necessarily bad. It just feels so like I feel like we gained nothing from it. It's pointless.
You are correct. It is.
There's no exploration. Like literally, Elzarian society has not evolved. Period. So there's like no exploration of what's changed. There's no character growth. It's literally a repeat of stories we've already seen.
And including the author's own story.
Yes, very
which
much
is hilarious. And I really enjoy how their solution to three companions is, let's just split up Turlough and Nyssa and from the rest of the group and have them do absolutely fucking nothing. For like 3 episodes. They wander around and get chased by like spiders or something. It doesn't matter.
The only quote-unquote interesting thing that the story does at all is by introducing Femme and having her as a link between the Elzarians and the Marshmen that they can actually communicate. And, like, that is hypothetically interesting, but they do nothing with it. Mm-hmm. Nothing.
Yeah,
nothing.
I mean, so like, surprise, surprise, right? Like, the Marshmen wake up, Mistfall comes, and they run amok, and it turns out that Femme learned to talk to the Mistman Marsh leader. And he's like, yo, we're mad because we're environmentalists too. And our planet has a nourishing goop that we drink. All the creatures drink it, and we're all linked. And so the reason that we're mad is because when your ship crashed, you blew a hole in one of our goop pools, and we didn't like that. And so now that you're back, we think you're going to do it again. So don't be goopy.
Can we mention the fact that the quote unquote point of this episode is to reveal that not only are the Marshmen and the Elzarians and the spiders the same genetic race, it's fucking let's see, for all you can, I as soon as I heard this I was like, oh, it's Mogo, but of course that's not as popular. So it's basically, this is Elzarius or whatever this planet's, it's Elzarius, right?
Yeah.
It's fucking Ego the Living Planet. It's one organism that has all these separate parts.
Yeah, more or less. And then
yeah, they reveal it's genetically one organism all in itself, which is has no impact on the actual plot. It's just like revealed for some reason.
It's I guess, well, because that's why the Marshmen were upset. You know, so yeah, this is just, I don't know. It's not bad. It's okay, but it's like, it's completely pedestrian in every way. It's a very bland plot. The cast sounds bored, and there nothing really comes of it. The only real takeaway is the cliffhanger ending. Which, one thing I do appreciate about this trilogy is every story does lead directly into the next one. The cliffhanger ending is that Solus, who's the security guy, he gets away and he's taken the stabilizer thing from the TARDIS, because of course. So we have to take off and chase him, which the TARDIS really doesn't like.
Oh yeah, I guess we failed to mention the fact that the native person goes into the TARDIS and just freaks the fuck out for some reason and steals the crystal and runs away.
Yeah, it was very annoying.
It was very annoying.
So yeah, they take off to chase him, and the TARDIS is like shaking itself apart, and that's to be continued, Dave.
So then that brings us directly into Equilibrium.
Yes,
where we land.
It's a planet where emotions have been banned, and you have to take drugs to suppress them, and then you do gun kung fu and slice off people's faces, and it's fucking cool as hell.
I'm glad you've seen the movie Equilibrium as well. That movie, it's a very fun movie. I don't know. I haven't seen it in like 10 years. I don't know if I could call it good, but it's very fun.
It's cool. It's very stylish.
It's the kind of movie you watch when you're like 16,
drunk.
17, 18, and you're like, I want to see like edgy movies. What is this movie I've never heard of? Oh, it's Christian Bale doing kung fu. Fuck yeah.
Gun fu.
Gun fu.
It's pretty, no, okay, so what actually happens is that the
TARDIS lands in Winterfell.
No, Eisenfell. You call it Winterfell? That's Game of Thrones, isn't it?
Yeah, I was making a Game of Thrones joke, Kate.
Oh!
Very snowy castle keep.
Okay, I'm going to go with Isengard, but that makes some more sense.
Since I know you don't do Game of Thrones, Winterfell is in the snow. It's a snowy keep, and there's lots of wolves.
I know what Winterfell is. I read the first book.
Well, you should know, then you should get the joke I made.
I thought you were stupid, though.
No, I was making a joke.
I assumed that you were dumb. I'm sorry.
At an icy castle, and there are wolves in the distance. So it's
there are.
So this, I enjoyed the story for the, like, there are parts of it I had problems with. There, like, it has some pacing issues. It's supposed to fit into this other framework as a story, and it really doesn't. Like, on its own, this is like, okay, this is an interesting e-space story because it's this weird like version of a planet where everything has to be equilibrium. There can only be so many people that exist.
For every birth, like, you have to sacrifice like one of the older family members, essentially. Yes, everything, like, there's only so much. It's like this world is something of a closed circle. You find out later it's like a dumb energy barrier, but there's only so much energy to be had.
Well, we find that the world is contained by it. If you ever played the GameCube game Custom Robo, you find out that their whole world is just in a dome, but you can actually leave later. Like, they're living in a dome.
I like that game.
I like that game too, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, it's a little bit of a generic story idea, but it's not a bad story idea, and like the story itself is pretty good.
Well, one of the things I liked is that, you know, it's more, you don't have a big evil bad guy. You have people who are a product of their society who don't really know a better way, and the conflict comes from the way things are run, more than anybody who's being evil.
Well, in particular, this story, the bad guy, the quote unquote bad guy, the opposition, the
Antagonist.
conflict, the antagonist is not a person. It is not a society. It is this black corrupting snow that just kills and destroys. Like it's a
It
force.
dissolves matter. So
Yeah,
basically, at least like the people of Eisenfell believe that it's basically Eisenfell sort of taking back its own. If you don't keep the balance, you know, then
and
it'll come and do it for you.
throughout this story, not only do the people that are quote unquote being oppressed, even though they're kind of like society is stuck in its ways, but it never, like, people have societal like classist misgivings, but it's never brought to an extreme, and both sides of the spectrum are like wary, like they're like, yeah, this system's weird and we don't like it, but this is literally how things work. We have to abide by it because we've seen what happens when we don't.
Yeah, I like that they were able to have, you know, the poorer people suspicious that, you know, oh, you know, the equilibrium's not as harsh on the rich, but they don't take it into like this full blown
But it's not
revolution story.
It may be true, but it's not necessarily is true.
Yeah,
And if it is true, it's not intentional by the rich people. Like, if it is true, they're completely unaware. They think that they're contributing equally.
well, I mean,
They're not.
the Queen of Eisenfell, who's the main, I guess, partner for the Doctor in this story, who he probably has his most dialogue with. You know, she sacrificed her husband she sacrificed her husband for their first child, who ended up not even living to see his first birthday. And so when her daughter was born, who Turlough has a crush on, when she was born, she then had to sacrifice her grandfather as well. So there's a you know, she has that sadness about her, like, you know, so even though she's in charge of this system ostensibly, like she's still been hurt by it.
Yeah.
And she's not really a bad person.
No, again, the antagonist is basically a force of nature in this story. It's not just an evil mustache twirling villain. It's the rules of this planet that we come to find out, like, it's the system that's trying to keep things in equilibrium, that has, as time's gone on with most computer systems we've not only seen in Doctor Who but in fiction in general, like they lose sight of their original purpose, and their rules twist out of control.
Yeah, so I mean, it's meant to be an experiment by people who are trying to see if they could sort of like, if by maintaining a certain equilibrium level of energy, they would be able to like halt the spread of entropy in e-space. But the experiment's been abandoned, and the computer's kind of been taking things too literally, and all that. And the avatar of the computer, the balancer, is kind of like the high fucking counselor to the queen, and has been doing it for years and years and years, and
Forever.
Forever. He's forgotten that he's actually just a computer avatar. And you know, he also was a candidate in a lesser Doctor Who story, would have been a candidate to be the mustache twirling bad guy, and he's not like that either. He just genuinely did not know his origins.
No, and there's a great moment where the Doctor realizes he's a machine and part of the computer program, and like finds a maintenance hatch, and like the character literally just has a mental breakdown because he becomes just part of the computer program again, and is like, maintenance hatch open, like. And yeah. It's really cool. Like, it
is very well done, and
it's a good episode in a really stupid arc.
I thought it was another really strong moment was I think that just illustrated just how like normalized this ridiculous system is when the Doctor asks about Solus, whose ship crashed on Eisenfell before the TARDIS did, asking if he had the stabilizer. And the Queen mentions like, oh, he didn't survive his wounds, and later we find out that it's like, oh, he could not survive, meaning you didn't think it was worth spending the resources on him, so you killed him. And then the Queen's just like, oh, was that wrong? It's like, yeah, he kind of was.
Though of course we don't feel bad because he was a huge asshole and he deserved.
He was a huge asshole. Oh my lord. So yeah, and then so there's that. Tegan and Nyssa help out some villagers who have been like keeping illegal children hidden in the castle, away from the balancing. And Turlough gets a crush on Inga, who's the princess. She's like the leader of the hunt. They go out and they kill kill the ice wolves, and they run afoul of the black wind.
The dire wolves turned evil.
They did. So
it's like if you've seen the recent season of Game of Thrones, where the White Walkers corrupt things and they make them evil.
I heard tell a dragon becomes a thing.
They made an evil death dragon that I can't tell if it's spewing blue fire or ice fire.
I don't know. I the only thing I know is whatever I see over John's shoulder when he watches it on his computer.
I like that show. It's fun.
Anyway, so I think this was very, very well done story.
Me too.
It was a nice, solid episode with some good concepts. Unlike Mistfall, all of the regulars do have things to do.
We're shitting all over the story arc, but this is actually a really good part of the story arc.
No, and I think both this and Entropy Plague I think are good episodes. They're quality episodes. But the thing is like it's just like within the context of the overall arc, they were a bad idea. But as individual episodes, they are pretty strong.
Everything wrong with Entropy Plague, which we'll get to in just a minute, has nothing to do with the actual story, but has to do with the overarching plot line and the solutions. Like, because they've decided to hamstring the story and say that Nyssa has to stay in this universe and will never return, and all of these decisions, characters make dumb decisions that they have to because they've already decided. Yes,
because the writers have decreed. But yeah, no, but Equilibrium is like it's a solid episode. I think it's I don't know about you, but I felt like it was pretty true to the kinds of stories they would have told on TV, especially like there's a little bit of similarity to Kiss of Death as well. But it's also it seems like the kind of story that would have been told about E-Space on television, like, albeit maybe a little bit more well thought out, but it's the kind of thing that E-Space stories usually end up being.
Yes. Yeah, like this, and Equilibrium in particular, it was like this was a really interesting story about this weird alternate reality that technically could work but wouldn't entirely work in normal reality. That I really liked. That we're in E-Space. Here's an example of a planet that's like fucked up and weird, constrained by these weird rules because we're in this alternate reality, and I think it worked really well. And yeah. I enjoyed it. It was a good reprieve between these two stories. Because as we'll get into, as I said, Entropy Plague has some good ideas, but making this a whole plot line was fucking stupid.
I have to admit that out of all our episodes this week, I probably enjoyed Entropy Plague the most. But we'll scream at each other in a bit. No. Oh, and just to mention the linking thing, the cliffhanger for Equilibrium to lead us into Entropy Plague is that Tegan gets kidnapped by space pirates out of nowhere. They just kind of take off with her, so the chase is on again, I guess.
Yeah, that was dumb.
It was like, I mean, the space pirates, to be fair, they do play a fairly large role in Entropy Plague, but they literally come out of nowhere at the end of Equilibrium. Like, it's just like this totally random, like, oh, hey, bye. We've kidnapped Tegan for no reason.
Kate, yeah. I have a very important question.
What's up?
Why do space pirates act like buccaneer pirates? Like,
I don't know.
Yar! And like why are they all nautical like
scurvy dogs?
1400s or whatever. Like, why are these scurvy dogs space pirates? Like, why did we decide to adopt that fucking historical?
I don't know. You might get a kick out of this, but in the extras for Entropy Plague, they're interviewing the actors. One of the actors who played the pirate captain said, when I came in, I was unsure of how piratey we wanted to make it, so I asked the director, and the director was like, very piratey. So, I mean, I guess it's what they wanted. But
okay, so let's talk about Entropy Plague, which is the end. Technically the literal end of the Richter syndrome arc, even though we ended it last week.
Yes.
So I liked about half to 3/4 of the story. I hated the other part.
Okay.
But I really liked the other part, the other half, the half to 3/4.
So we open with the TARDIS materializing on whatever fucking planet we were supposed to get to in the first place.
To meet Adric.
To meet Adric, and The Doctor and the companions, basically, it's a framing device for the story. The Doctor and his companions take turns explaining to Adric why his mother is not coming back. All of the stupid reasons she's not returning.
Which I just want to say the framing device I really liked. I as much as I love these audio dramas, I would really love if Big Finish did more of the companion chronicle stuff, but with a full cast and narrated like had actual narration, because I feel like it does add to the story. Like there's plenty of audio dramas you can write without that, but there's so much more you can do with it. And if there was a blend of both.
Depends on the plot. I mean, I appreciated it simply because I'm glad they're admitting up front that Nyssa's gone, because we know that if someone has to go, it's going to be her. Like, there's no suspense about that. So they get it out of the way and use it instead as a backbone for the story, which was a smart plan.
Nyssa narrates the 4th episode, which doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, they frame it like she's writing a letter to Adric that he'll never get, which you
find out halfway through that episode, because she just starts narrating it, and then you find out halfway through it, it's like, oh, she's writing a letter.
It's a little bit strange too, because it's like, you know, there are between episodes, like there are you know, flashes back to the framing device where the first episode the Doctor narrates. Then, you know, we come out of it and he goes to, like, Tegan comes out and she talks it, and then like he goes to get Turlough talks for a little bit. Like there's you know, the characters who are narrating come and go, and then all of a sudden it's just like Nyssa out of nowhere. Okay.
Tension between the Doctor and Adric, like it's really well done.
Like Adric is genuinely and like understandably pissed about this, and like I think there's a moment where he says, like, you know, I wish that she had never met you on Helheim. Like,
yeah, there's some.
He's not wrong.
No, but then when you have Nyssa narrates the third act, the final episode, it's just, it undermines the purpose, I think. Because then, yeah, you literally get the part where she's narrating and she's like, I'm writing this letter even though I know you'll never get it. And it's like,
but someone needs to narrate and everyone else has already had their turn.
Yeah, I guess we have to find out what happened after, even though like the Doctor and Tegan and Turlough were here for everything but like the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think that part of that was just that they didn't want to leave Nyssa with an uncertain fate, and like, how else do you, if you're stuck with this framing device, like, how else do you show something the other characters wouldn't be present for?
I don't disagree. I just think it
was... yes.
It was sloppy. It was handled very sloppily.
It was handled sloppily. I mean...
And the whole end of this... So we land on a planet where we find out that the CVE is kind of... It's unstable. Yes, it's collapsing... in on itself. It's creating an entropy problem. It's drawing all of this energy out of E-space.
Yeah, and so I think they describe it like a plug down a drain. So like, power on this planet does not work at all, and that's why electricity. Like that's why we crash land, and as does the pirate ship that we're chasing. This is actually the same castle that we saw in Warrior's Gate.
We have like weird gear clock, steam powered robots. Like nothing works the way it should because of entropy, and it's not only creating this plague where like electricity doesn't work, all this shit doesn't work. Food rots. Like you'll have food and then like a wave will pass and it'll all be rotten.
That's a cool idea.
People get infected with this plague and turn into Sandmen.
Yeah, Nyssa mentions that this is what happened to what's his face on Legopolis.
It's an idea I like, but the Sandman on the cover of this audio
his mouth looks like a gaping asshole.
It looks fucking stupid. It looks so dumb. And as much as I actually like the Sandman and this story, I couldn't help but picture the image from the cover of the audio
with this fucking Birdo mouth.
And they look so stupid.
It's not my favorite illustration.
It's one of the worst. Like the Marshmen in the Mistfall cover look fucking like they look worse than they did on the show somehow. But this looks even dumb. This looks like a bad CG effect, except for the fact that it's just an image. Like it's not like a CGI visual effect. It's just an image. You could have done better. Come on.
Yeah, it's not the greatest. So anyway, yeah. So the chief scientist who's taken up residence in the Warrior's Gate castle is named Pallister, And he's come up with this way to momentarily stabilize the CVE so that people can escape from E-space into N-space, because the universe is collapsing, the stars are going out. Like, shit's gotten really bad by this point, which seems to kind of have snuck up on us, because it didn't seem that bad before on Mistfall, but whatever, it has. So anyway...
Stabilize it is to sacrifice a human life to give
Yes.
that literal energy to stabilize the portal to send a... And they basically have fucking roller coaster tracks that launch spaceships off like a little ramp through the portal.
Through the portal, and they have to like winch it up, which is actually really cool. I really enjoyed like the clockwork technology that they had to use to get around not having...
With the explanation of needing that, it is, but the idea of putting a spaceship on a fucking Hot Wheels ramp is really dumb.
I like it. It's a neat
fun.
idea. I mean, you gotta... I mean, I wasn't picturing a Hot Wheels ramp. I was thinking more like, you know, Vikings rolling their ship over logs along the... You know, like that kind of thing.
But the fact that it was spaceships, just like, it makes me think of sticking not a normal Hot Wheels car, but a fucking stupid one on a ramp, like an Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, or like a car that's also a dragon.
I think that's your own problem. It's like that one. That's your brain. That's not the episode. I think it's like that one. One of the Hannah episodes where like there was the evil robot, and I kept picturing Gutspan. It's like that's not. That's not the episode's fault. That's something wrong with me.
Your brain. No. I'm saying, like, I thought it sounded dumb, but it was fun. Like, I enjoyed the ramp. Like,
and I love the steam robots.
The ramp I didn't like is when the fucking space pirates were on it, because the pirates were... I don't like swashbuckling pirates being in space.
I do if it's something deliberately like that, like Treasure Planet. You know, that's fine.
This wasn't.
It's a little bit silly.
We have normal society, and then fucking swashbuckling evil space pirates.
Yeah, but even so, like I feel like the core ideas of getting around no electricity, and also the human sacrifice aspect is I really like those, because we find out, like, you know, in like the medical tent, it's like people aren't here to, you know, get treatment. It's like they're here to volunteer to be used as batteries because they want to get their families out. And that's like the toll to get out of here. And that's the reason that Tegan was kidnapped at the end of Equilibrium, is these pirates are using her as a payment to get the hell out of E-space.
So I liked a lot of parts of the story.
Yes.
I feel like the resolution is very sloppily handled. I feel like the whole end of the story is very sloppy. It doesn't feel smart enough for Doctor Who. There's no clever solution. There's just sacrifice. Like, we know in this episode, Nyssa is going to end up... Like, literally, the episode starts with the framing device of the Doctor showing up to tell Adric Nyssa didn't come back, and we have to tell you why. So, like, we know she's going to stay here. So it automatically, like strung up this story to the fact that Nyssa's going to die here, or not die, but she's going to be stuck here. There's no way around that. There's no clever solution. And I feel like it held the story back in that sense, because there was nothing clever for anyone to do, because we know what's going to happen. There was no grand Doctor Who solution to save lives and fix things. Like, it just sets the tone, very dark, very desolate. Like there is no...
I don't have an issue with that necessarily. Like, I understand that, like, I enjoy, like, not all the time, especially not for Doctor Who, but sometimes I do like the idea that occasionally you're in a situation where you're just stuck and there's no good choice, and like there is no clever option. And it gets to the point where during the story even we kind of split our characters, where Nyssa and Tegan escape into the village with Cherry Ann, some village girl, and they do the thing. And the Doctor and Turlough are with Pallister, and they're working on the machine. I guess to the point where the Doctor is even, you know, kind of like considering, you know, using himself as the sacrifice, and Turlough was like, let's use a pirate because they suck.
Well, I mean, that was the obvious solution too, was the Doctor would sacrifice himself, which of course at this point we know exactly, like that and you know what, I totally agree with you. Like, the dark option is not bad. It's just when you set up the fact that we know what's going to happen, all of this drama about, oh, who's going to sacrifice themselves? What's this decision we have to make? we know what happens.
Yeah.
Like there's all of this drawing out what's actually going to happen, even though we know the ending.
There's a little bit more agonizing over it than there needs to be. But
Yes,
I will say that
happens.
like we know what happens, but I also appreciate that they raise the questions when the doctor says, "I'll sacrifice myself." When Turlough says, "Why don't we use one of the space pirates because they're bad people anyway?" When Turlough, when they ask like, "Okay, well, why can't the robot do it? Why would Nyssa stay here instead of going home to her family?" Like they do ask the questions the audience would be asking, and I do appreciate that they do that and they don't just go with Nyssa's the one because that's what the story is. Like they do at least.
I feel like they ask, but I don't feel like they give a satisfactory answer.
Most of the time, I think they do to the ones where why can't it be a robot? Because they're entropying and they're falling apart, or we can't just murder a pirate, Turlough, even though you're a bastard. Like it's more of the why Nyssa question that's a bit too much. And I mean, like I think the reason that makes it difficult, because what we find out is that the reason that E-Space is decaying so quickly is because the CVE keeps being opened and for people to go out, and that actually just makes it worse. And if they they stabilize it and then seal it for good, then E-Space is still dying, but it'll have a few centuries left. So the plan is to, we'll go through the TARDIS, we'll go through the last ship, and then seal it behind them. And one of the reasons that I think that it gets a little bit unsatisfying with Nyssa is because they're so close to getting out with her, and then they reverse it at the last second.
They're agonizing over this decision, even though we know what happened.
Here's the thing. They have Cherry Ann from the village, their helper girl, and she's like her brother became a Sandman, and the Sandman attacked the village, and blah blah blah, and she's infected with the Entropy plague now, and da 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 da. So she volunteers to go be the battery, and she says, "I'll stay behind and I'll tell the robots what to do, and you guys go and get in there." And then Nyssa, has been toying with the idea of staying because she wants to help the people and cure the sick, and whatever. Nyssa's an altruistic person, so she wants to help. So she locks the others in the spaceship and makes a beeline back to the control room on her own. But the thing is they didn't have to do that. If she had just gotten in and they had left, then the plan would have been fine. They would have made it if she hadn't done that. That's one of the reasons that I think it falls a little bit flat, is because they were that close. If they hadn't had a Cherry Ann, or Cherry Ann had died and there was no one else, it would have been easier to swallow. You know what I mean?
This story tells us Nyssa is going to be left here, and then agonizes over the decision of leaving Nyssa here. And it's like, you should have maybe, even though I enjoyed the framing device, it's like maybe you get rid of that, and you don't end the last trilogy with the knowledge that Nyssa will never come back. Like, you have that be a reveal, and then it's shocking and maybe actually impactful. Like, you don't do 3 stories to lead up to the fact that Nyssa's never coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that if they had taken Cherry Ann out of the picture earlier, it would have been easier. Just because there would have been a more rock solid reason for Nyssa to go back. And it's like, yes, okay, when she comes to the control room, Cherry Ann's almost dead, so Nyssa has to go in. But the thing is that Nyssa doesn't know that when she comes back. Also, she doesn't.
They make it seem like Nyssa's aged so much because of the Entropy storms, basically, at this point.
Yes.
But, how is she the battery if it fucking basically killed Cherry Ann? How is Nyssa going to be the battery if it took away her rejuvenation and made her even older?
Well, they do mention when they first meet her again on Helheim that Trachonites are fairly long lived. So even though it's been 50 years for Nyssa, she's not decrepit.
But they specifically describe how before she
she's white haired.
Final step, yeah, she's white haired and old looking, and it's and then she's
I kind of wondered about that too. But I said, I kind of just wrote it off as the fact that okay, Trachonites live a long time, I guess.
But I mean, that's my problem, especially with the last act of this story. Is I feel like by making this the end of this longer story, it ruined it maybe not ruined is a strong word. It diminished the actual plot of this single story.
That's probably fair. It is definitely saddled with a lot of baggage it has to take care of.
Yes.
But I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to the idea, because this whole Entropy thing, it is a hallmark of the E-Space stories, and lest we forget, that is what destroyed Traken. It makes a little bit of sense for the end of Nyssa's story to become kind of full circle with that, where she's helping to prevent the thing that destroyed her world.
And that's one of the reveals, is that one of the people, I can't remember which character it was that we see in that Logopolis episode, became a Sandman.
Yeah.
Again, there's actually a lot I liked about this episode. It's really just like,
yeah, it's just
the way they wrap up Nyssa's story in this episode that I don't, and the space pirates I thought were fucking stupid.
They're silly, but it's like whatever.
To the point where they're fucking in the prison in the castle with like straight out of fucking Pirates of the Caribbean, where you're in the dungeon with the pirates like jangling the keys or jangling the bone to get the keys from the dog. And it's like, oh, we got to get out of this. One of the pirates is infected. You have to let us out of this fucking like skeleton key style prison with iron bars and shit. Like, I get the fact that electricity doesn't work and all this shit, but when you have nautical era pirates in space, it's weird.
I like that setting anyway. It doesn't bug me that much. It's a matter of degrees.
It's the juxtaposition. I feel like it detracts from the dark
space.
No. I feel like it detracts from the dark, serious tone of the story when you have goofy Caribbean style pirates in this sci-fi story that aren't displaced in time.
Well, yeah, it's a fair criticism. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it didn't bug me.
I actually liked the characters. I just didn't think they fit the tone.
That's fair enough. For me, like I said, my big issue is that I think that they did. I appreciate that they tried to dot their I's and cross their T's with the logic of why it's Nyssa. I liked that they started with the framing device. I liked the narration. I like the character stuff. I think that emotionally it felt right. I think they did a good job of making it a nice set piece. The problem is like I said, I don't think the situation was so desperate that there wasn't a way out of it. They had to make it more dire than they did, so that it had to be Nyssa. There still felt like there were other options. It
felt like they wrote themselves into a hole that they could only write themselves out of one way for no reason. I totally agree. It felt like it wasn't that this was a situation that there was no character clever enough to figure their way out. It felt like the writers are like, well, no, we have to write a situation where there is no way out. Like we know what we want to end with.
But they didn't quite manage it though. They had to twist that vice just one more crank.
Situation clever enough to warrant the ending we want, and that was the issue with this story. I feel like all of the characters here were clever enough to find a better solution, and we just don't.
Yeah, so they had to take away those possibilities a little more thoroughly. But like I said, this was my favorite episode this week. I think it's a strong story, even in spite of that. It's just the problem is that this is kind of one trilogy too many, and it's a weaker ending than Prisoners of Fate would have offered.
I think I liked Equilibrium more just because it did not have the baggage to drag it down.
It's definitely less constrained for sure.
Entropy Plague overall might be a better story, but I think because of the baggage it has to deal with, I like Equilibrium more. But they are both good stories.
I think that this is just kind of like this whole run, at least towards the end, is really emblematic of a problem that Big Finish.
Fuck did we go back to E-Space?
Yeah, why the fuck do we go back to E-Space? But I think it's a problem that Big Finish has, where it's like as much as I love Big Finish, like sometimes they just cannot let go. They have a real problem ending a storyline.
Yes. Oh my god, yes.
And not so much that the endings themselves are necessarily bad, but the thing is that they keep drawing it out and drawing it out and drawing it out because they want to keep using Sarah Sutton. They want to keep using her with people other than Peter Davison, and it's not just her. Like Charlie went on forever and a day with Paul McGann, and
both agree. Prisoners of Fate was like a fantastic ending.
It absolutely was.
The story, the Richter syndrome storyline, but a great ending for Nyssa. Whereas I feel like this ending, while not unbecoming of her character, is just so unnecessary, and I feel like it's cruel to Nyssa. Like it is cruel to Nyssa. She deserves better as a character.
No, this whole run was totally tacked on and absolutely unnecessary. Like, I do like Equilibrium, I like Entropy Plague, but they didn't need to be there. And part of the problem is that Prisoners of Fate is stronger than either of those episodes. And the issue is that, like, you know, her going with the Doctor again to meet them on the planet is fucking, like, it hinges on absolute stupidity, because there's no logical reason why she wouldn't just wait with Adric and go with him. Why would you risk getting in the TARDIS again and ending up who the fuck knows where?
You know, Kate.
It makes no sense.
We brought up Oliver and that trilogy before.
Yeah.
Honestly, with Entropy Plague, this would have been a perfect, like, I mean, besides the fact that it thematically ties into Nyssa, this would have been a perfect story to have a character that we get for, like, a trilogy of episodes to sacrifice themselves in. That isn't someone that honestly deserves, like, again, Nyssa deserves better. She's been through, like,
she had better, and the only reason they didn't was by authorial fiat.
She is a tragic character from start to finish, and holy shit, like, give her, like, I'm upset just because, like, give her a happy ending. She deserves a happy ending.
Yeah, I know, because it's like, she loses her planet, she loses her father, she loses her husband, you know, now she's losing her children again. She's lost her youth. Like,
I love when Doctor Who goes dark, but most characters deserve happy endings.
Nyssa's really gotten the shit kicked out of her.
Yeah. Yeah, you fucking brainwashed her every other story. Give her a happy ending, god damn it.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
I do like again, I have issues with the way Nyssa's handled at the end of this story, but I do like the story. It's really good. It's a good story.
I think just overall the Richter's thing, like,
it was too long.
It was too long, and
it was already a trilogy too long before this trilogy.
You know, I'm kind of inclined to agree with you, but at the same time, I don't mind taking a pit stop during a story arc to have a one-off adventure. I think that keeps things from getting too bogged down in continuity. And I know that's a bit rich coming from me, but it's okay to have, you know, a sidestep and a detour. And that's actually one of the reasons that I miss, like, longer seasons. With, like, a lot of TV shows now are doing 13. I kind of miss 22 because there was time for digressions, and I think that's okay. But there's a time and a place where it makes sense to be the end, and we went well beyond that.
Yes, and you know what? I totally agree with you both on that and the whole TV. Like, I love 13 episode seasons, but I miss 22 because I miss some of the episodic stuff. Like, I don't want everything to be that, but I liked that.
And to me, the ideal TV format is like X-Files, DS9, Buffy. Like, sometimes, you know, there was an ongoing season plot. A lot of episodes would contribute to it. Some of them wouldn't. Some of them were just one-offs. Some of them were character studies. Some of them were, you know, I miss that format. But
give me like 18.
Sure, yeah.
Or give me like a 13 episode Netflix Marvel show, except don't have 5 episodes where the character loses their powers and we have to go through this bullshit. Just do a side story. Don't do the same side story for every character.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, this is far from the only story arc that I think Big Finish was hard to let go on. And the thing is like, this last trilogy was 195, 196, 197. So it was the run up to 200. And after 200, the monthly series has been much more of a clean slate. I think they were really trying to close off their ongoing plot lines, because this is not the only plot that came to an end around that time. So I think they were trying to kind of cut off a lot of stuff. And from what I can tell, the monthly series has not developed like these giant long tangles since then.
So do you know what like the fan consensus was about the Richter arc as a whole and in this particular trilogy? Like, I don't know if you've looked at all. It doesn't matter if you did.
No, I have. I mean, I've been on like forums and websites. Like, I've seen, you know, obviously people.
Did everyone hate Mistfall like we did?
You know, I didn't really hear much of anything about Mistfall. I think it was kind of met with a shrug. If anything, it gets lumped in with things like Eldrad Must Die or Butcher of Brisbane, where it was like, there are too many sequels to Tom Baker episodes that do not need to be a thing. Like,
I'm glad you threw Butcher of Brisbane in there.
But anyway, I think general consensus is fairly similar to what we said. There were some like just fabulous standout episodes there, and but it went on too long and it meandered a little too much, and there was a stronger ending than they actually went with.
Also, Tegan's still awesome.
Tegan is still awesome. One of the highlights of the trilogy for me is Tegan, because my god, she's mouthy.
And I don't mind Turlough being like, why don't we sacrifice the pirates? Like, why don't this? Just I feel like in these last couple stories, he was too insistent on being a little shit. And it's like you grew in this long story arc, but you've regressed all of a sudden.
Well, we're heading back to TV, so I guess he has to.
like, I mean, I get, like, okay, the audios, maybe they're going to differ a little bit for the TV, but, like, don't literally regress the character for, like...
I didn't see it so much as a regression of more the fact that, like, that's an element to Turlough's personality that'll kind of always be there. And I think given, at least with Prisoners of Fate, I liked it because the situation was so desperate where the universe was literally ending that Turlough had that, like, survival instinct kicking in. It felt a little too instantly insistent for my taste. Not terrible, but I could see why you'd feel that way, but I enjoyed it, especially the resulting argument that he had with the Doctor. I like that scene quite a lot. So,
but either way, so I mean, Mistfall sucks.
Mistfall is not good. The other two episodes are solid.
I mean, I guess if you're going to listen to this arc, I'd have to recommend them.
Yeah,
like.
Sure.
God damn it!
And unfortunately, they're linked so far. Really, you kind of need Mistfall to lead into Equilibrium.
I know. It just going back to E-Space is just really upsetting at this point.
Actually, let's just go back over this arc and see what's actually necessary, because I'm curious now. So, all right, we got part 1, which is Cobwebs, absolutely important.
Cobwebs is good. It is
great. Great episode.
It's a great fucking story.
We have Whispering Forest, not necessarily like totally necessary, but there is some minor continuity with Richter's. They get the shock thing.
Decent story, but you can totally ignore it.
Decent enough. Cradle of the Snake, not really necessary. Nope. Heroes of Sontar. You need Heroes of Sontar. That's where Nyssa reveals her kids.
Also, Heroes of Sontar is good.
Kiss of Death. I don't think you need that.
Was Kiss of Death?
That was Turlough's vault.
That's the Turlough. Yeah, it's good Turlough character study, but kind of pointless overall.
Yeah. So, and then next is Rat Trap, which does suck, but has actually some plot movement, so you probably need it.
Do you though? Because like we don't actually discover.
Well, that's when Nyssa develops her half of the cure, right?
But it's unstable. But she had already kind of developed that, but the data got corrupted from Hell.
Yeah, but then Rat Trap is when she actually makes the thing, and it's like, oh, it's not stable, and she's.
I would say you don't need Rat Trap. Just don't bother. Like it is.
It's not good
unless you're a completionist. Don't bother.
I mean, I would say get it for continuity if you care. If you don't, then skip it. Next is Emerald Tiger. Great story. It also introduces Nyssa's de-aging. Jupiter Conjunction, solid, but you don't need it.
No, yeah, totally unnecessary. But I mean, I would definitely say listen to it, but yeah, it's completely unnecessary because I did like that one quite a bit.
Butcher of Brisbane, some people love it, some people hate it, but I don't think you need it.
It's fun, but fucking stupid.
It's fucking stupid. Eldrad Must Die, you don't need. Lady of Mercia, you don't need. Prisoners of Fate, obviously, absolutely, and that should have been the ending. And then there's the last trilogy, which are all stuck together, but really you only need Entropy Plague.
Yeah. Again, Equilibrium is great.
Equilibrium is good. So, again, there's plenty of side trips in there, and some of them are good, some of them aren't. But we went on too long. And it's interesting looking at the list, because we go from Emerald Tiger, 1, 2, 3, 4 audios in between that and Prisoners of Fate, which is where the next plot line actually starts. And don't forget, like these are a year apart if you're buying these on release. Like these trilogies, they were an annual thing. So you were.
Oh my god, this would have been. Big Finish should appreciate the fact that we're so far behind. Because if we were like following along as this shit came out, like.
We would have been furious.
We would be so angry. We would be like one of like 3 people actually covering this stuff on the internet and just shitting all over it.
Oh man. Yeah.
Not necessarily because it's bad, but just because it's unnecessary and drawn out.
Yeah. And I mean that's what people were saying at the time. So.
Yeah. So, okay. So next week, we definitely have the conclusion to the first part of the Fourth Doctor Adventure season and this box set, which is a two-part story called Kate.
The Mind Runners and The Demon Rises.
So that is 2 hours.
2 hours. And on television, we're returning to TV for the season 20 finale. Remember seasons? The season 20 finale, The King's Demons, which is actually only 2 episodes.
Really?
Really? Yeah, so look forward to that.
Interesting. And then, hold on, let me look. I want to look.
5 Doctors is next after that.
5 Doctors? Is there a bunch of audios in between them?
There are not.
None?
No, there aren't.
Wow. 2 weeks of TV in the row? What the fuck?
Ooh, I know.
Uh-oh. The one after that's Warriors of the Deep. Does that have anything to do with other things of the deep, Kate?
Well, there may be some certain sea devils in it.
Anyway, so excellent. So yeah, we will be back next week with the King of Demon or the King's Demons and the end of the Fourth Doctor box set. Bye, everyone.
We talked a lot.
Did talk a lot.